Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Equity and Student Achievement Committee of the Whole this evening. Today is February 27th, 2024. I'm going to jump right into the meeting, and starting with the speakers list, it does not appear that we have any speakers signed up to speak this evening. I would like to entertain a motion to review and the acceptance of the minutes from the January 16th meeting.
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Patterson, seconded by Commissioner Malloy. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, so without further ado, we'll jump into our academic and financial plan. Tonight, we are going to receive a quarterly update. Coming before us at this time is Deputy Superintendent Strickland.
Good evening, Chairperson Simmons, commissioners, and staff, the greater Rochester community, and definitely want to acknowledge President Elliott and Vice President LeBron in their absence. Tonight, I am bringing a presentation on quarter two of the academic plan. This is a plan that guides our work generally every single day, and is the reason why we are going to continue to lift our district to the greatest heights. Next slide, please. So this is to give a preview of what the academic plan entails. Just as I did for quarter one, we wanted to build continuity, just to gain an understanding of what we actually do with this comprehensive academic plan, and also to further support our newly elected commissioners with their understanding of what the academic plan entails. So the academic plan is split up. Well, first we have two plans. We have an academic plan and we also have a financial plan. I'm here tonight to present on the academic plan. The academic plan is broken up into five different sort of buckets or categories, which you see right before you. We have turnaround leadership, talent management, instructional transformation, culture shift, and systems, resources, and structures. The number that is next to those titles are the amount of indicators or the amount of recommendations that are in each section of the plan. So just for instance, turning around leadership has 10 indicators that we are responsible for, while instructional transformation, which makes the most sense as this is the academic plan, has a total of 34 that we are responsible for reporting out on each quarter. Next slide, please. It's always also good to give you the process on how we are reporting the progress that we are making with the academic plan. So this is a cross-functional, cross-departmental effort that we take when completing the portions of the academic plan, meaning the Division of Teaching and Learning, the Division of Academic Administration and Supports, Human Capital, Finance. We all collaborate in order to ensure that ensure that we are actually making the best progress on the indicators as possible. Individuals that are sort of the leads of each of the academic plan indicators are assigned to report out on specific aspects of the indicators. And we then review, as deputies and the chief of staff, the evidence or the recommendations that are inside of a folder or a narrative that's on the academic plan and ensure that we have the information that matches the actual recommendation. Next slide, please. Of course, there's interpretations about portions of the indicators that are in front of us. So that causes myself, Deputy Turner, Chief Evans, our school chiefs, our chief academic officer, so on and so forth, to actually go back and make sure that we have the evidence that is needed to appropriately say that we have satisfied the indicator for that quarter. We then submit a final report to the state monitor, which we work extremely collaboratively with him, and we talk about our evidence of impact to ensure that we have the evidence that matches the indicators, or we take things out, we add things in, so on and so forth. We then provide you all a report about the academic plan in the superintendent's board letter, which you get to see the actual evidence, the actual narratives that accompany the evidence, just to show you that this work is becoming innate, it's becoming within us, and we're just doing it because we're not just doing it, but we're doing it because this is the work that needs to get done in order for our district to make continuous improvements. We submit the final documentation to the Commissioner of Education. As part of the academic plan, you have to get updates about the academic plan quarterly, which is why I'm before you right now. And then myself, Deputy Turner, Superintendent Peluso, of course, Chief Evans, and Mr. Alicea, Mr. Potter, we all get together with individuals from the State Education Department and actually talk about progress and things that we can continue to do to even better if, or things that we need to really take a look at and make sure that we highlight in the upcoming quarterly report. Next slide, please. There are 2 reporting questions that we answer with each indicator. The first one is, has the district made appropriate progress during the quarter 1 or quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4? And next, has the district fully implemented actions required during this quarter? So for question number 1, the district is making adequate progress towards meeting the recommendations. You will see a number of recommendations are actually yes in this regard. We are making the appropriate progress during the quarter as we should, and that's just all we're doing. We're just answering that question. The second question is, the district has not taken action or is not able to act on the recommendation at the moment. There are some questions that have to be answered no. For instance, evaluations. You know that it takes generally a complete calendar year or a school year to evaluate. So that is an example of where we would respond no. Doesn't mean that there's no movement on it. It just means we cannot close out that indicator at the current time. Next slide, please. So the next, actually the final, I want to say 6 or 7 slides are me reporting out in the particular areas where we are in terms of our yeses and our nos, as well as highlights of areas with appropriate progress and then areas fully not implemented. So for turnaround leadership, question number 1, we answered yes to 8 of them, 2 to no. Question number 2, which talks about, are we able to actually finish all of those during this time? We have 5 yeses and 5 nos. I've also accompanied a graph just to show you different modalities of presenting the information for you all. But you could see areas of highlighted progress would be our board goals, which is great, because last time, actually, that was at the bottom. So we are now moving forward with our board goals, which is fantastic, and it allows us to, one, satisfy an element of this indicator, but you would know that one in particular is a no because we have to wait until we see if we've met that goal or not. We have a lot of different superintendent authorities that we are enacting for our receivership schools. For instance, they have weekly professional developments, which are paid. We do things that actually are to enhance the quality of education for those students in receivership schools. And, just one other thing I wanted to highlight, the governance model. So we know that we're about to accept the governance model. That was quickly, like last week, moved to the top. So congratulations to you all on that. But also, it would be an area that is not fully implemented. So I just want you to understand that that's how a lot of these indicators actually lie. And just an FYI, these are summarized. The goals can be read completely and are available for public view and your viewing as well. Next slide, please. Talent management. So if you can see, we've made a substantial amount of progress in this area. We have 7 yeses, which is great. But there's many areas where we are not able to complete or fully implement during this quarter as of now. And that's because the work is truly, in fact, ongoing. So we are doing well with keeping up with our standard operating procedures. We want to be in a place where this is the way we do things, and we are also leaving resources for those that come after us. Like, too often people retire, they leave organizations, and we don't have any procedures for how things are done. So we are ensuring that we have ways in which we orientate individuals to specific positions or procedures and whatnot. We are currently developing a central office evaluation tool that is very similar no matter what the position is. So an executive director would be able to fill it out as an executive director. We're also looking at the directors and making sure that we are able to evaluate them effectively with some professional education, professional learning standards for leaders. We have our APPR. That's, of course, this is an ongoing school year level process. We start off with announced observations and unannounced observations, but in the end, the goal is that each school, each department is 100% complete as it pertains to every every staff member being evaluated by a rubric that is approved with our collective bargaining units. Just skipping down, areas not fully implemented, something that we have to really talk about as a cabinet continuously is how do we design a leadership academy for aspiring central office and school leaders. And that is something that continues to be at the back of our minds, and we are just keeping that on our radar, even though it's not a right now, but it will be soon to come. Next slide, please. Instructional transformation has 2 different slides. This one is the one with the largest amount of indicators. There's a total of 34. And as you can see, 29 of them are being enacted. So that's also some good news. We have 5 in which we answered no for question number 1 around making adequate progress during quarter 2. Has the district implemented the actions reported during the quarter? We were about split, 15 yeses and 19 nos, because a lot of this work is truly ongoing. So we are doing the planning right now for what the extended school year looks like in terms of summer school, and within the next few weeks, you'll actually be presented with some of the happenings that's going on, or that we are planning on happening this summer, which is very exciting. Myself, the superintendent, and the chief academic officer actually met with Rochester Institute for Technology, and we're talking about some quality programming that we are possibly going to be able to offer our sophomores, juniors, and seniors this summer around, the organization is called Micron, and they are showing that we need some advanced technologies, individuals to fulfill that work, and they are interested in partnering with RIT, who wants to partner with us and get some of our students actually to attend camp. So hopefully we have more information about that summer program, which is more enriching in the next few weeks. So very exciting, just wanted to put that plug out there. We've done substantial amounts of work in terms of our grading and promotion policy. It's fully in effect. We do continue to find some tweaks, which is, it's okay. And I just want to make that very clear. When we've had a practice that has been sustained over time, often it becomes so ingrained that we can't navigate all the pitfalls and things that we're going to encounter as we continue to move through the process. So what we continue to do is we continue to engage our collective bargaining units, the different central office individuals, our principals are continuously providing ideas, thoughts about how do we enhance our grading and promotion policies so that next time that those things come around, we can continue to provide edits. We have adopted some temporary elementary grading expectations. It is very important for our families to know exactly where their children are at all times. We have board policy that states that we will keep up, or excuse me, I think it's actually a part of our collective bargaining unit, where our teachers should be updating grade books on at least a biweekly basis so that our families that are logged into parent portal, they can have that understanding of where their students are that's up to date as much as possible. And we just provided some parameters around that. Again, it's not the perfect system. However, that Band-Aid had to get lifted because we know that it was an urgent need that our students' progress is actually known so our families can really understand where their students fit in their current grade level. We continue to strengthen our data-wise focus on continuous improvement is actually getting stronger and stronger. We met today with the school chiefs and the chief academic officer just to talk about what that process of support is going to look like for our school leaders, our schools. We met with New York State Education Department. They were extremely excited about the fact that we're thinking about this work, and we're thinking about how do we, again, ingrain this into the fabric of what we do as we continue to try to lift our district. Our problem-solving teams for MTSS was one of the recommendations that I pleaded to get changed because it just seemed that the original recommendation was unattainable. So one of the ask was, can we just look at the leadership and the structures that are in place to actually sustain quality problem-solving teams? So we have a fantastic department that goes into schools almost every single day, it seems like. They always report back. I went to 20 schools this week and watched their problem-solving teams, and that is what we want to have happen. We want to see that our central office leaders are being of service to our schools and not any type of hindrance, okay? Community school models continuously being strengthened under the leadership of Deputy Superintendent Turner. It's being modeled with greater fidelity. We're using that community schools rubric to make sure that schools are following that framework. I do know that in terms of our receivership schools, which are the schools that actually use that rubric with more fidelity, because that's a part of their receivership indicators. They were able to earn all their points on those community school model rubrics, and we, again, continue to make progress. And we are getting extremely hip on our instructional toolkit for teaching and learning. One of the big lifts this year was to ensure that there was use of our district-approved curriculum. We have set out some strong core instructional actions, meaning what should we see teachers doing that is going to facilitate strong instruction in our classrooms. We actually list those things out and provide bullets on each of them on what it looks like. And we also have core student practices. What should we see students doing in the classroom that shows that they are grappling with the information, that they are actually obtaining or absorbing the information that's being presented in front of them, and we have that in each of our content-specific areas. Next slide, please. As I said before, there's areas that are going to just be ongoing. So even though DataWise is strengthening, it's also ongoing. It's a complete continuous improvement process. So the word continuous already says we have to say no. So that's exactly what we have done. We continue to have to monitor the special education and the bilingual education consent decree and CAP. It's just ongoing reporting that needs to be done. And again, there's quite a few items that are listed here that we already have listed on the previous slide. And again, the nature of the instructional transformation indicators really tell us that, you know, these are just ongoing things. We have Dr. Shalana Garfield. She's been revving up her resources to really make sure that our 0 to 5 initiatives for early literacy and numeracy are going to be tight, getting out there in the community, using research-based practices and thoughts around what it is that we need to do for our parents so that when they come to us at pre-K 3 and pre-K 4, they are not behind, they're ready to go. And then we continue that process as we enter into the kindergarten grades. The summer blueprint, summer learning blueprint is going to continuously develop, as I told you about the connection with Micron and RIT that is on the horizon, and as well as our graduation audit. So we keep chipping away slowly but surely, which is great, and it's just showing a lot of promise for this school year. Next slide, please. Culture shifts, as you can see, all blue. It's 3 different indicators, and we continue to make sure that we keep up with them because we want to keep this blue. We have both satisfied, you know, the amount of progress needed to be made during Q2, as well as being fully implemented. So our School of Choice digital magazine is complete. Communications team led by Chief Ramos Lopez did a fantastic job at highlighting our schools and ready for the lottery. We have meetings that are being attended by administration, by the superintendent, and the administration with our parents. We do know that parents are our #1 partners, and we need to make sure that they are at the table with the decisions, and there are thought partners in this work, and it's good to see that, you know, we're all joining in some way, shape, or form, and we're trying to do our part to make sure we continue to not lose the voices of our parents. And our executive school-based planning team is in full effect under the auspices of Chief Evans, in which we meet with the various bargaining units on a monthly basis, and we are really trying to just align practices on school decision-making processes in all of our schools. We're getting a standard understanding of how that looks in each of our buildings. Next slide. And finally, we have systems, resources, and structures. As you can see, we've made complete progress in terms of Q2, with 13 of these being answered yes. And as you can see, we have 8 yeses for question number 2 and 5 nos. And I just, again, pulled out some highlights for each of the areas. So we are doing, we're making strides under Chief Swan in terms of providing a timely process for annual reviews, which are our students with individualized education plans. We're finalizing those individualized education plans, which also include, making sure parents are aware and have that information on what's going to help their students achieve academically and social emotionally. Managed choice and zone implementation, we're moving into that direction. We just got an update about, where we are with our middle schools and how we're moving to zones, and we're following that policy to a T. So it's good to see that, we have something written, and this is what we're actually doing. And professional learning communities, those are going to be ongoing. Most schools are meeting with grade level teams once a week. There's some teacher teams that meet every day to plan and things of that nature, and that's the quality partnerships that we want to see within our school communities. And finally, areas not fully implemented, there's always going to be ongoing work with the project management plan for Invest in Tomorrow, because it's just a huge feat of things that we have to do. You also, as commissioners, receive information from us on a weekly basis, just letting us know where we are in the process. And we're just trying to be as transparent as possible and letting you know, here's where we are and here's where we're going. And then finally, Medicaid compliance report. So we just got our report. That report will be responded to, and then you will actually get the presentation. But as you know, that's also submitted quarterly as well. So with that being said, any questions?
Thank you for your presentation, Deputy Strickland. I also want to make sure that I acknowledge that we have a couple of board members in Albany, as well as Superintendent Peluso, who is online. I believe, again, I don't know if I mentioned Commissioner Santiago is online. He is also in Albany. President Elliott, to my understanding, I believe is in Albany as well. And Vice President LeBron is, I believe, also, is she still on the Zoom? She has also joined us this evening on the Zoom. So the viewing audience may see the dais appears pretty light, and that would be the reason why, but we are here, either electronically or physically. Again, thank you for your presentation. I'm going to open the floor up for questions. Ms. Andino, do you see any questions or hands raised on the Zoom at this point in time? Okay, just let me know when you see that. And I'm going to start from one end of the dais with Commissioner Patterson.
Sure. Thank you very much. And I think when I ask my question, you're going to know why I'm leading off with this.
Sure.
So I was denied access to Power School, administrative access to Power School, and no one replied to my email from the administration on who denied that access. It came from IT. And then one will say, well, Commissioner, why do you need administrative access to Power School? And that's so questions like this really don't have to be asked from the dais. I can go in there and look for myself and discover those. But more importantly, I'd like a response by tomorrow. Who denied me access? Number two, and there's no reflection upon Commissioner Simmons. So, Commissioner, no negative, nothing negative to impact, her. So I want to say that this question is directly posed to the administration. My question is why are so many students taking online classes as new classes, which are, I probably didn't type that right, but a live teacher. So why are so many students taking online courses as new classes with a live teacher? And without appropriate seat time, will the state give credit for these classes?
Also, are those things that we can also, if we don't have responses for them this evening, do you have a response? Or,
No, that'll definitely have to go into the board
I was
log.
gonna say, if we,
That is a function of another department, and I want to make sure that I give only accurate information at this
correct,
time.
thank you so much for that.
Yes.
And Ms. Sandino, are you able to capture those questions? Okay, so I just want to make sure that we have some
Yeah, I
record
did
of
write it
capturing
down
the
as well.
questions.
Yeah, and then just to follow up on that, Commissioner, I want to make sure that, for me personally, that, overseeing, one may say it has nothing to do with audit, but being the chair of audit, I have my reasons for asking for this information. But I want to make sure that you provide written documentations from NICEAD also. Provide me with those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And if we can, try to make sure that the questions are relevant to the presentation for this evening. However, we have captured the questions presented by Commissioner Patterson to the question log for follow-up. And I'm going to move to the left of myself, move on down the line to Commissioner Malloy at this time.
Cool. Thank you so much, Chief Strickland. Appreciated the presentation. There is a lot there. There's a lot to digest, of course. I think the only thing that I have to say, because I'm really satisfied with the progress that we seem to be making, I know that we have just adopted a new governance model as a board. Kudos, board. And I know that the language that we're going to start using under that governance model doesn't necessarily or isn't shown necessarily in the presentation, or at least the alignment of that. And I would imagine over the next 2 years, as we fully implement this governance model, we might have requests for maybe like aligning some of these indicators with some of the goals or the inputs or outcomes. We have a new vocabulary we're going to be learning as a board. And so I think just for my own understanding as well, I would love to know or see or have a better understanding at least of what the indicators are for the yes and the no, just as a board member, and would love to see this aligned eventually with our student outcome-based board academic goals.
Absolutely.
Because I think, in our training, and this is nothing against the presentation, this is great info. I think just in the training that I've had on the Council for Great City Schools, they encourage board members to spend no more than 50% of a meeting talking about things other than the student academic goals or those outcomes.
Yes.
And we do spend as a board a lot of time talking about a bunch of other things. And so I think having those indicators align with the language from the Council of Great City Schools will help us as a board stay more focused on the student outcome-based governance model.
Absolutely. I do know that that was the direction we were actually going in, but did not do it with the change in our state monitors. But I definitely know that that's something that we're going to dive head first in. I loved hearing that, we are looking at the academic outcomes of our students. Something that I look at on a day-to-day basis on my own leadership is how much time am I spending on instructional items versus management. You know what I mean? I have to stay in the instructional lane. So that means even if I'm going to a school to say hi to, a parent or what have you, I'm going to ask their kids about their progress or something of that nature. I'm always staying in instruction, and I am definitely convinced that, Dr. Peluso and our team, we will be ready to make
And,
sure that we align.
I meant to say no less than 50% of our time talking about student outcomes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, on the dais, it's hard publicly. Just finally, I would love to see more data just related to some of these inputs and just have a better understanding at some point of how we get to those yeses and nos. So thank you so much for your presentation. Very
No problem.
informative.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. We're going to move down to Commissioner Griffin at this time, if you have any questions or comments.
I do. Thank you, Chief Strickland. You are a man of many words, especially with your presentations, and I do respect that. Some things that I'm concerned about in that I think I've addressed more than once before. Curriculum, streamlining the curriculum across the board, and how the principals are engaged in with their teachers and their administration, and making sure that that curriculum is being followed throughout the district. What I'm finding is that some teachers are creating their own curriculum and not going by what is noted as New York State regulated curriculum. So my concern would be, are the principals holding the teachers responsible for making sure that the curriculum that is set up within the system that is given by New York State is being followed like it should be? Because that is a problem that I can foresee that would affect the student outcomes.
So that's a fantastic question, and I just want to provide you some language around who sort of does what. So New York State is the authorizing entity. They actually provide us standards. They do not, and they will tell you they do not provide curriculum. It is the responsibility of the school district to develop or to adopt curriculum that will be used by teachers to help students meet the standards that New York State sets. I will say that myself, along with our superintendent and a few other members of our cabinet, as well as 2 principals, this summer went to Harvard, and we participated in the public education leadership program. And one of the late night projects that we stayed up on was, how do we ensure that our staff is using district level or district curriculum in our classrooms every day that was set from the beginning of the year. Of course, that is going to take some time. I'm not sure about the level of the monitoring that has been done in the past, but all I can really for surely say is that when we came out of our PELP program this summer, we knew that we were looking at essential content, making sure students have access to the guaranteed and viable curriculum, which would be that grade level curriculum each and every day. Each month, we have Principal Leadership Academy meetings. And in those Principal Leadership Academy meetings, we actually engage our school leaders in so many different things. Last month, we really dove a little deeper into analyzing student work and making sure that the work that is in front of them that they can review is actually grade appropriate. And right away, there's certain things that we would be able to notice, and it's so great to hear the energy of principals looking at the screen and they see curriculum that's not aligned to ours, and there's like, that's not even grade level curriculum. That's not even our approved curriculum. So we're getting to those places where we are equipping school leaders with the tools to make sure that they are monitoring these processes. We actually have coaching cycles with our principals from school number 2 and school number 17, in which they are linked up with their school chief, who's linked up with our executive directors of math and reading, or of ELA, and working collaboratively to make sure that the teachers that they visit are implementing district level curriculum. We have this large system, definitely gonna take time, but do know that that is an expectation that has been provided to all school leaders right at the forefront of this school year, and we continue to address it each month.
I'm a very hands-on person, so I think that principals need to be, more visible within the classrooms and then with the teachers. I understand all the training, and that's with everyone. We all need to be trained to be the best at what we can be. However, I do think there is a lack thereof engagement with the principals and the teachers and the follow-up to ensure that our children are getting what they need as far as the curriculum, and that brings a big concern to me. If those children, for some reason or another, are transferred from one school to the other, they should be able to pick up where they left off, per se. And that is with the same subject. If for instance, if it was a science class that they were taking, that same science class whatever curriculum they were teaching should be at that same school, at that same grade. They may not be learning at the same level, but they should have the same curriculum. And right now, that is not standard in the Rochester City School District. So I understand that we give the principals and all of the administration the training that they need. That's great. But sometimes it's a waste of money when you're sitting behind a desk and you're not getting up off your feet and you're not leaving out your desk, out your office to go to classroom to visibly see that the teachers are doing what they need to do and not basing it all on a Chromebook. And I think that is an initiative that we need to ensure that our staff that we pay money for, that we pay principals for, that they are doing their job. And they're doing their job to the best of their ability. So I'm going to leave that right there, though. And then I want to also say we have liaisons in the classrooms. I mean, in the schools as well. The liaisons are there. Some are there to interpret for some of the parents, but I'm finding that some are maybe even working from home. I'm not sure why that is happening, but as a liaison, you should be working in the school themselves in order to be the most effective. So that's another concern that I have. I don't know how a liaison works from home when they should be in the school working. So that's another thing that I wanted to just bring to light. Another concern that I have, and it's not something you probably be able to relate to right
Griffin?
now or to address.
Griffin, I'm gonna let you do that one. Can this be the last question, because then I wanna kind of pull the meeting back in, because we have quite a few more presentations.
Okay, and then I also have a concern about, the IEP. That's part of the special education, right? Did you mention that?
Yes.
Okay, so my concern about IEP is that I think it's being misused. I think that we are too quick to give our kids an IEP. So I'm looking to see what those standards are and to see how we can reel that in, because I'm finding that sometimes we have parents that'll go for the IEP just for a financial gain in some aspects. I'm not. This is just my opinion. Again, I'm not throwing that out there to throw anybody under the bus, but I am saying this because it is true. So we can use it to cause more of a hindrance to our children and to label them and to put them in that arena when they shouldn't even really be there. And it's just that they need to be. They may need to be redirected. We don't know everything that's happening in their family dynamics, and I know teachers sometimes feel like they're being disciplinarians as well. But I think that we need to reel that in the IEP and make better standards, and let's revisit IEP as a whole and see how it's being given out to the children and to their doctors for them for them to be looked at as an IEP student. So I don't know if you know what we can do about that, but it's something that I question about that process. So go ahead.
Can I just wanted to, a few things. Mr. Washington, can you go back to slide 7? I'm actually very glad that you ended with that last statement, because one of the things
Slide 7.
Slide 7, yes, slide 7, 2 and 6. Thank you. One of the things that we have done diligent work around is making sure that our schools' problem-solving teams are being monitored. The problem-solving team is what a teacher refers a student who may be in danger of lack of performance, or maybe having some current behavior difficulties or some maladjustments. They are sending those students, they're bringing information to the table for the problem-solving teams in our multi-tiered systems of support systems in our schools, to ensure that the data is there that actually shows that a student actually does need an IEP. The days are gone where you can just say, because a letter is written, you're automatically going to qualify for an IEP. You have to have quality data on research-based interventions that's both academic and or behavioral before a student can just simply be given an individualized education plan. So we are being very intentional with consistent monitoring of that problem-solving practice so that we stop the over-identification of our Black and brown students in particular our Black and brown males. So you can rest assured that we are definitely being deliberate in making sure that we slow that trend all the way down, as it really is. We know what that special education segue tends to lead to.
Okay, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Commissioner Griffin. I want to ask a couple of questions, and then I'm going to close out with a couple more questions, or one more question from each commissioner, and also I want to touch in on the Zoom. Any hands on Zoom? We do.
Thank you,
have a-
Chief Strickland.
Okay, so I'm going to ask my questions, then I'm going to go to the Zoom, and then one last question from each
Absolutely.
commissioner. We're going to stop there. And in addition to what Commissioner Griffin was speaking about regarding the IEPs, I totally agree and understand, respect and understand historically the over-diagnosis of Black and brown children here in this district and across the nation. And so we don't want to see that happening. And I know that in our history here, we even had some issues around the consent decree and those type of things. So I am interested in finding out how we're doing that. I do think it's important that we have a pulse on what happens in the classroom, because I myself have gone to a classroom and have seen a child who may meet some criteria on paper, but I'll follow up in the board log, if you capture this, Ms. Andino, around how does this child didn't even fit in the room. Like the child was teaching the other children, and it was crazy to me. And it was confusing. And I know that part of the academic plan and a lot of the instructional pieces of special education are very, very technical.
Yes.
And I don't want to see them mishandled. And we can't afford to have another news article around our special education and if it's being mishandled. So I do want to understand when we're going to be aligning with the academic plan and when special education is going to fall under instruction. I think that's something, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm still just kind of confused around what I'm seeing there. So I do have that question. Did you want to weigh in, State Monitor?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, that's one of the recommendations that is in the academic plan for special education, to be under teaching and learning based on my experience and some research that I have done. It was one of the questions that we were asked last week by the State Education Department, and Dr. Peluso shared with the state his decision about that. But that's one of the areas that I feel that, I will be identifying as a violation, because I feel that it belongs under teaching and learning. And I'm not saying that work has not been done, it's just that those are teachers, that is about academic program and academic support for the students.
Yeah, that's the part that I'm
Yes.
focused on. So it's not to say the work is not happening there, but the academic piece, it's just confusing me there. Thank you for that response, and I'll be looking to see how we're following up. My next question is around, I'm excited about the grading promotion, right? Because I know social promotion is harmful. I brought that up a long time ago. I'm so happy we modified that particular policy. But then the next piece became, well, if we're not standardizing our grading practices, social promotion or not, it's not happening, right? So I'm glad that we are looking at our grading. However, for the elementary level, I was thinking along the lines of high school, right? You take the Regents exam, you get a 65 or something like that. But for this elementary level, like a 65, does that even equate to like a 3 on the standardized test? Like, how does that work? Because you can't get anything less than a 50. Like, how does that work?
So 65 is passing. That is not the highest standard bar. But remember when I said we're like ripping off those Band-Aids, and we do know that there's further work to do? Well, when you're looking at it at the high school level, Regents, I believe the area is from 65 to, I want to say 80%, that's a level 3. And there's certain levels within our, where our students land based off of the percentage of questions that they get right, that does land around there. So in particular with the elementary grades, we have a grading scale that's vast, 1 through 9. that is, whoa. That means there's a lot of different descriptors for eight, 8 or 9 indicators. And what we're trying to do is, and this is something that I have our chief academic officer ready to commence, is a grading task force on how are we fixing elementary grading. However, in the meantime, that doesn't mean that our parents and our families don't deserve to know where their students are.
Yeah.
And even if we have to go as basic as saying this is the percentage, you know that if you get a 65, yeah, that's passing, but it's not of standard.
Right.
You know, a family member knows that if little Johnny gets 100 on that test, Johnny did a great job. Whereas if Johnny got a 50, that's not so great.
Right.
We wanted to rip off that Band-Aid so that we are ensuring that our families are aware of where their students are. We do know there's a lot of work that has to be done, but we wanted to ensure, again, our student information system, which is PowerSchool, has some grades for our students and families so that we can start looking at or understanding some progress to a certain degree.
Okay, yeah, I'll be happy to keep following up, just so that I want to make sure that my understanding around that is making sense, and because that was concerning, and I love the idea of going into like a weighted grading system, because someone having a C, like you said, it could be a very low C or a very high C, and you're starting to become a B. But if there's no distinction, it really doesn't make sense.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to actually curtail some of my questions. I'm going to ask one last question for the sake of time and
Yes.
respect for folks on Zoom. Throughout here, you talked about the areas that we're progressing in, and you may have touched on this, I might have missed it. How do you determine that progress has taken place? Like, what are you looking at that says, you know what, progress has taken place beyond the fact that you started doing it?
So in this process, the superintendent really gives us the leeway to add the evidence that we have and really do almost like a self-diagnosis of where we feel we are. But as you recall in, I want to say it was slides 3, along with the same 3, if you recall in those slides, you actually see that we actually engage in dialogue with our state monitor to make sure that the recommendation or the yes that we put or the no we put is actually accurate. And that is something that has helped us tremendously. So he has said, you know, I'm looking at this indicator that you said yes to. Well, I want to know where's the evidence that's attached to this little piece of the indicator to actually support that yes. Then there's also cases where we've said no and we think, oh, it's a no, we can't put nothing there. And our state manager, he continues to challenge us in a positive way because some things just can't happen. And he says, write a description on why it's a no and how we're going to progress towards getting to that yes. So that's the dialogue that happens. The dialogue also happens with our New York State Education Department, and that's sort of where we are with the yeses and the nos and whatnot.
Okay, interesting. Thank you for that. Thank you to those on Zoom with your patience.
Yes.
Any questions or hands still raised? Vice President LeBron?
Yes, thank you. And I really appreciate the conversation that's happening. But I do want to, add that with the consent decree, it is equally important that we also uplift that there are many families fighting for IEPs currently in the district and waiting for those, and then waiting to get the services. And, I've often talked about my own grandson, but I now know for a fact my granddaughter will be also coming in next. And there are just things that, like, I kind of cringe at hearing when I hear things like we can discipline that out or potentially have better classroom management. And when families are really fighting to get these services in place and we are the barrier, like that's the part that's always heartbreaking to me, especially having to like live through it right now. But I do know that even that is part of the consent decree, that the district has better avenues and faster avenues for families to get linked to services. So while, yes, uplifting the historically Black and brown boys for behaviors, and I don't necessarily even support the behavioral plans pieces. If a student needs an IEP, they should deserve and get an IEP with all of the services that they are required, but deserve to have as well. Um, but I also have to say that I would love to actually, even if it's in writing, get an example of a school where a principal is just sort of not actively involved. And I do have to like also put it out there that I've basically visited every school in this district. I've had all of my children go through this district. My grandchildren are now in this district. I'm always talking about that, but I've never just seen a principal just not be doing the best that they can with the reality that the principal job that we have in this district is a heavily loaded position of having to do a million and one things, which I do think makes it much more difficult to then focus on the academics piece by itself. But then also even the assistant principals are then overloaded. And I think that's part of like the structural issues that we do have in this district. But I just want to point out that these are still individuals doing that the best that they can on any given day, but that very few, and I will not say 100%, but I will stand by at least 95% of our principals bust their behinds every day, day in and day out. And I have
Yes.
seen it with my own eyes. And they give way more than the hours that they're obligated to the contract to give and give to this community on the weekends and evenings. And they do it all over this community. And so I just want to uplift them. But I also had to uplift that families are still fighting to gain access to IEPs and to get those services in place. And I do not want that to be buried in this conversation. Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner Simmons. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for your comments, Vice President LeBron. Definitely want children to get services that need services, and I need us to figure out how we're going to line this up and make sure they're getting it the proper way. Do we have Commissioner Santiago on at all? Okay, all right. Okay, so this is literally like the final statement or question, and I want it to be like 30 seconds, no, 15 seconds, because this has been a long conversation for me.
It's a good conversation, though. Good conversation.
It's been a good conversation, but I feel like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to digress at this point. Commissioner Patterson, did you have one final question or statement that you needed to make that can be done in 10, 15 seconds?
No, I'm going to behave, so. I'll send it to the clerk.
Now, if it's a pressing question that you want to put on, I want to make sure that I honor that, but like,
No, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay. I'm going to go to Commissioner Malloy. Same thing, 10, 15 seconds, please.
Right, thank you, Commissioner Simmons. I don't think I held anything up tonight. but,
Okay, bless your heart.
Just to highlight again, just what I said earlier and what you just brought up, would like to see more information about how the criteria used for those yeses and nos, just to better understand that process and all of this. Thank you.
Okay, same to you, Commissioner Griffin. You got 10. You only have 10 seconds.
Okay, I have
Go.
10 seconds.
Yes.
Okay, guys. One last question. Has the district purchased a curriculum aligned to the state standards for each subject?
Generally, we do have a guaranteed and viable curriculum for each subject, but we're always in ongoing textbook adoption, reviews, pilots, so on and so forth. For instance, you're going to be receiving information about biology and earth science because those course names changed, and we have to make sure that those curricula are updated for our teachers so that they are able to, so that we're making sure that the standards in those textbooks are meeting the next generation standards that are out there for science.
Okay, and I just want to close with this. Really quick, Camille. And I want to acknowledge that when I talk about the principals, I'm just talking about the ones that the shoe fits, wear it type of thing. It's not that I don't respect that their principals doing the right job as well as teachers. So I do want to commend the ones that are doing what they need to do, but we also need to address the ones that are not, so we know that we're watching.
We definitely do. We know our principals are doing great work. They're doing the best they can under the circumstances that they have. But again, that's why I also talk about those monthly leadership meetings. We continue that even with all the different trials and tribulations that are involved in the school day, we continue to try to encourage them, uplift them, and get them to help our staff continue to achieve, and most importantly, our students. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your presentation this evening. Your responses. Thank you. Thank you. All right. We have Mr. Sheldon Cox. Do we have that? Wait a minute. You know what? I'm Steve Lamort.
Presentation today.
For the
Yeah,
CTE presentation.
there's just a couple things, oh, excuse me. There's a few updates about the instructional vision and the literacy update that you guys asked for right before CTE. I mean, if you want to forego those first couple slides and just do CTE for time, that's certainly you guys' call.
You can proceed with your presentation as it is.
Sure, okay. Oh, is the clicker? Good evening, everybody. Thanks very much for the time. As the agenda, or as I just mentioned on the agenda states, there's kind of a tri-part update tonight. The instructional vision revisions I'll talk about very quickly. Our executive director of ELA and reading is sick and not here today. And Executive Director Sheldon Cox is also a little sniffly, but is powering through to talk with you guys to give a CTE update. Right? So first off, always, we begin our slides in ESA talking about the instructional core. So, I like my audience participation, and I was going to give a little quiz to you guys right now. This is the instructional core, but some blanks in it. So, giving you guys a second to think about that first question. What are the components of the instructional core? What should be filled in these 4 empty boxes? I'll give a little wait time.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with student engagement as one.
Students are one of those boxes, and 1, 2, and 3 are kind of interchangeable. You can label them in different ways. So
Right.
students and student engagement is absolutely one of those. Yep.
Yeah, let's go with content and rigor and relevance.
Everyone knows how to use their resources well. Content, right, is one in one of those boxes as well. And finally,
Educator, knowledge, and skill, I think.
correct, right? Educator is the third, right? So that those make up the 3 pieces of the triangle. And in the middle, the 4th box, or circle in this case, is
The task.
the task, what we ask kids to do, right? So the instructional core is that dynamic relationship between those 3 things, the educator, the student, and the content. And then, as Deputy Strickland was referencing before, looking at student work, right? The tasks, the things we ask them to do. So the second part of that quiz is, why is this important, right? Why do we want to continue to keep the instructional core at our center as a district, and for you personally, right, as a board member?
Or that's a question you're asking. Why is it important, instructional core? That's the edifice in which we exist. Our primary objective is to educate students, right? And so at the instructional core is where that happens, where our children should be learning to read, where they should be doing math, and where they should get exposure to great CTE opportunities and things of that nature.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. Anybody else want to add any?
Yeah, it's our sole purpose as a district.
Really important, right? Like, this is what everything we do should be about. Every decision that we make, every approval or disapproval that we want to talk about, every discussion should revolve around this instructional core. And we've got to keep that at the center at all times. And another way to think about this is, if we want to make any changes in this district, any changes to student outcomes or student achievement, it has to be done through this instructional core. Staff over the summer and at the beginning of the school year, we got a lot of positive feedback. And then I kind of went on the road show to talk with community members, with parent groups, with students, right? So we visited PLAC, CPAC, BEC, the Multilingual Parent Advisory Council, Student Leadership Congress to talk with students as well as other district staff to get lots of feedback in order to take that draft off and to change the form. So we've made some minor tweaks to language, a few additions, kind of some emphasis of particular language just to make it more clear and make it kind of multifunction and usable in different ways. And so this is our vision for excellent instruction. Paired, right, with that instructional core, this is what should be guiding that relationship that we're talking about in the instructional core. Right? I figure, like I said, this is kind of a 3 parts. That was the instructional vision. We'll talk a little bit about literacy, and then I'll give you a quick second or two if you want to ask me questions before CT happens, or I'll trust you to kind of guide us how to do that. The quick literacy update that folks had asked for some information about, to let you know, NYSED hosted a literacy symposium statewide. So all of educators from the entire state all gathered together on January 10th in their respective locations, right? It was virtual. You know, years ago, we would all descend on Albany for a day or two. So Zoom and Teams have made it really nice for us to get together as a statewide group. You know, dozens of us here from the district went to the local BOCES along with representatives from all of the county area school districts to learn and see from NYSED an unveiled set of literacy briefs, really focusing in on the science of reading. So not going to report out on those briefs per se, but wanted to make sure that you as a board all knew that happened and provide some links to that as well. In terms of our local district context in talking about the science of reading, just bringing you an update about LETRS training. So as we've talked about in the past, LETRS stands for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, and it's a professional learning initiative, right, to convey knowledge and skills to teachers about how best to teach reading to students. So the district was a little bit behind in terms of this LETRS training as compared to many of our counterparts in the Monroe County area, but in the last 2 years has made some great leaps and bounds in offering this training to our teachers and making it happen. So for us, our target audience for LETRS training around the science of reading is all teachers K-3, both monolingual and bilingual, K-6 special education teachers, K-6 ENL teachers, as well as K-6 interventionists. So by the end of this year, we should have all teachers through LETRS training in that first volume. We're about 75-ish% complete now, but we have 2 superintendent's days that are coming up that will get anyone who hasn't had that, as well as some release during the school day to gather with those folks together and get them through the training. One place, you know, I mentioned before we were a little behind the times in terms of offering this training to our teachers. Where we are ahead of the time, or ahead of the times, if you will, is offering this training to our administrators. While many of our surrounding districts have been getting their teachers through this training, they have not been focusing on their administrators. So this year we made the active choice to make sure that we did that. Because we want teachers to have the knowledge and skill, and we want administrators, principals, and assistant principals to have that knowledge and skill as well to support that implementation in the building and making sure that it's happening. For the future, LETRS training is long, and LETRS training can be expensive in lots of different ways. So what we've done this year is make sure that we have an in-house train the trainer series of folks, you know, a cadre of folks who can offer this training in-house in the future. Because even this year, when we get through 100%, next year we're going to have new teachers coming in, or next year we'll have a 6th grade teacher who ends up teaching 1st grade or 2nd grade that we want to make sure that we loop in. So we will have the capacity in-house to provide that training for those and keep this up to date and maintain it from year to year. So talking about that LETRS training and the science of reading, we know the science of reading is not a curriculum per se, right? Like it is a body of research that informs how we teach. So there is no one curriculum that is going to serve the needs of all students. Right now we have a base ELA curriculum, kindergarten through 5th grade, called MyView from Savis, previously known as Pearson. And what we identified over the last few years is that core reading program that we have is not check all the boxes in terms of great implementation of the science of reading, particularly at the K-2 foundational level. So at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, we engaged in an RFP to find a better set of resources for our teachers to use in teaching reading at the earliest grades. So we just finished, I think, the contracts with that last week for Amplify, which will replace the K-2 reading parts of our English program right now. So again, there is no such thing as a curriculum that will respond and meet every need. And so we're being really careful to say this base curriculum that we have will check some of the boxes and fulfill some of the needs that we have, and recognize that we need supplements to fill in some of the holes or the gaps, right? So Amplify will do that for us at the early grades in terms of reading curriculum. We expect, we're starting to train, or we'll start to train folks soon now, and expecting full implementation in September of 2024. In addition to core curriculum, right? First, good instruction for everybody. We also have to recognize that not all students will progress at the same rate, and that some students may have additional needs, right? And Deputy Strickland talked a little bit about response to intervention and MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, earlier. And so in addition to adopting a supplemental piece for our core Tier 1 instructional practices, we also need to get some materials for teachers to use for intervention, right? For students who need a little bit extra support. So Tier 1 is what every student gets, and Tier 2 and Tier 3 are additional supports for students who need them. And so what we, as part of that RFP process where we were looking for a core K2 piece, we also went through that RFP to find Tier 2 Tier 3 specifically interventions for reading. So next year, or actually, I'm sorry, not next year, right now, teachers have access to Really Great Reading, which is a Tier 3 intervention, Tier 3 for the most intensive needs, right? So we're talking, essentially in a perfect world, Tier 3 is 5-ish% of the population. Tier 2 would be, 15 or 20, right? We have that Tier 3 intervention, Really Great Reading for grades 3-6, and we have adopted something called Lexia Power Up as that Tier 3 intervention for 7-12. What we see is using things like iReady, we could see up to maybe 20% of our students going into 8th or 9th grade that are lacking in some foundational skills, right? Those early reading skills. So Lexia is something that will target those early reading skills, but in a more sophisticated way for an older learner, right? So the same decodable texts or materials we're using with a kindergartner or a first grader or a second grader are not the same things we'd want to use with an 8th grader or a 9th grader, right? Just for their current level of development, even though those skills may be lacking in a particular area. So Lexia Power Up will do that for us. Okay. Questions, thoughts, comments about the vision or the literacy updates before we kick it off to CTE?
For the sake of time, if we do have any questions or comments, I'm going to ask us to keep it at 1, and anything beyond that 1, we'll have to commit to the board question log at this time, but I will start at this end of the dais, to my right, Commissioner Patterson.
I'm going to come down and ask you a question, but can you start with your left?
You're not
Thank
ready
you.
yet? Okay. So I'll start. Well, let's start all the way to the left. Is anyone on Zoom with any questions or comments? Okay. Commissioner Griffin?
I know I've only been here for a short period of time. Thank you for the presentation. It had a lot of information. But what I'm finding is that we put a lot of time in our presentations, but I show no action and more so results in what we put forth on our presentations. And I'm more of an action person. So I know that this all looks good on paper, but I'm looking for actual results of what is noted here. It reads good. Everything looks good, but I think that my biggest thing is that I don't see a lot of action since I've been following the board and now that I'm an elected official on the board. So I guess that's my biggest concern. We have a lot of what we can do and what we need to do, but I don't show the action. So I guess it's just like a comment more than anything. Nice job on the presentation. All this will work. But however, when are we going to put it into action is my best question.
Sure. The Amplify curriculum itself will be put into action in September, and we're starting that training right now so that way it can be put into action effectively in September. Those intervention materials that we were talking about are in folks' hands now, right? So there's training and use of Really Great Reading right now as an intervention piece, and we'll continue both training and implementation of that throughout. In terms of some of the outcomes and data, I know that will be upcoming in some future ESA meetings as well in terms of some of the outcomes. So we'll make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner
absolutely.
Malloy?
Thank you. Great presentation. I am interested to know of the targeted staff, which you said is 75% of?
Yeah, currently that target is around 75% all the way through the 4-day training, and
Okay.
we'll expect to have all 100 before the end of the year.
Fantastic. I think my question then is, what is the cost of this PD? And what role then will reading coaches or coaches in general be playing in buildings? And are there, what role do reading teachers play in the district currently, right? So this isn't something that we necessarily could answer tonight, but I
Sure.
would love more of an understanding of the role that actual reading teachers play versus just the core classroom teachers. I mean, we're all responsible for getting kids to read, but would love to know more about how they're used across the district. But thank you, great presentation, and I think that all the strategies we give our teaching staff, the better. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Malloy. So I've been championing reading since I was like, let me see the ELA scores, and I'm very thoroughly. Well, I'll be really, really happy when we have the outcomes that we're looking for. But I do recognize all of the work, and it's incremental. To Commissioner Griffin's point, folks looking from the outside in or just joining may not recognize all of the efforts that are happening. And I know there are some current efforts that are taking place around literacy that the general public will be part of, hopefully, some exciting things that are coming up. So I'm really interested to seeing that. But that also says that we have to make sure we're vocal and more verbal around this. But I think we've been talking about it a lot, but making sure that once the larger community sees it and starts to become part of it and resources are in parents' hands, that's going to be even more phenomenal. So I'm excited about the direction of literacy in the district, and I know that I love that we've established our board goals around it, and so I am very interested to see what we come up with. I know Superintendent Peluso has mentioned some ideas he has for resources. So that's really all I have to say right now. And I'm going to end with Commissioner Patterson at this time.
Yep, thank you. I just want to say, first of all, I'm always pushing for, greater transparency when it comes to the administration and between the board. But I do want to apologize. When I'm wrong, I do want to make sure that the public, especially the public, hears when I've made a mistake. So the superintendent did bring it to my attention that he did reply to my administrative requests for Power School. And I do see that here before me. So again, I just want to extend an apology to him that I missed that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. That's awesome. And I think that concludes our questions for this piece right here. Thank you, Mr. Lamore. We're going to have Sheldon Cox come on up, a director for CTE here with the Rochester City School District, is going to talk about how we're progressing. Just before you get started, Mr. Cox, I want to bring to the attention of board members here on the dais that a handout was provided to us by Clerk Nguyen, so you can look along. You'll probably see it in the presentation as well, but it's about the expansion summary. So you have a paper copy in front of you if you want to look along and make notes. Thank you.
So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to present to you about CTE, and I'm just going to go straight into it. Thanks, Steve, for the presentation before. Oops, wrong way. I'm really good with technology. So when we started in the CTE department, we have 5 main goals. Goal number 1 is to strengthen the CTE program district-wide. Goal number 2, develop enrichment programs at all schools. Goal number 3, increase career and employability skills. Goal number 4, expand work-based learning opportunities. And number 5, improve family and community engagement. As we go into goal number 1, to strengthen and expand the CTE programs, currently we have 16 certified, New York State certified programs in our district. And in that sheet that you have in front of you, we'll list all of the CTE opportunities in our district. One column shows what students can take currently, and the other column shows what future CTE programs we plan to create. So currently 16 certified programs and more becoming certified as time goes on. All schools will have at least 1 certified CTE program. Currently, there's only 2 schools in the district that has certified CTE program. That is East and Edison, 5 at East, 11 at Edison. That's what makes up 16. And now all schools will have CTE programs. Some of the new programs we're going to start next year is at Wilson campus, we'll have the design technology. The business administration is a virtual class. Students can take that class virtually and can be accessible at any school. So the best way to explain that is if a student takes, let's say, entrepreneurship at Franklin campus, they can take the other classes related to that business administration class virtually to complete the course, or they can take them face-to-face with a teacher or virtually as an option. So we expand this so it's available to any student at any school, not requiring to have a certified CT teacher at that building. And culinary program at World of Inquiry. I've worked very hard and with the city of Rochester to have an MOA with the CPPS program. So right now we're in the process of interviewing students, and we will have a new grade of 10th graders starting next year at the Franklin campus. The enrichment opportunities is a way for me to explore different CTE opportunities for students in the lower grades so they can start thinking about things such as construction or coding or different things as drones or Legos or robotics. Those are gateways to CTE. So to expand these opportunities in the lower grades and in high school, kind of get kids enriched and learn about the different CTE areas. We started last year with 42 programs at different schools. Now we're up to 72 different things. And those things include like Girls Who Game, Girls Who Code. We had summer enrichment last summer. We have the Lego League. LeBron was there. I saw her at the Lego League, and that was fantastic. I had an opportunity to judge for the Lego League for the little kids. It was great. The Robotics Club is strong, and they have a new challenge this year. Esports is happening at Franklin Lower, Franklin Upper, Monroe Upper and Lower, and Northwest Middle School. So kids go from those schools to Great Lakes Gaming. It's a center at the downtown at the Kodak building. He has this great gaming system set up in that room, and the kids play games, and they competed in a Rocket League tournament. And I don't have pictures yet, but I do have pictures soon of kids competing and winning the Rocket League competition. Increase employability skills. There are two pathways to getting that done, and that is option one, where students earn hours, work-based learning hours, they take a CTE course, and they complete an employability profile and a career plan. Or option two, they pass a state-recognized technical assessment. Those are the two ways you can get it. And you can see in the graph below, shows you the growth that we've been having for people achieving their CTE employability skills. This is just a way to show that student is career ready for whatever next after high school, whether it be going back to school or training program or working in the industry. And some of the ways we have accomplished this is by, of course, with a work-based learning coordinator, which I'll talk about later. Also, students who take GWEP will receive their CDOS credential, or students who take a technical assessment, and there's a prep that a work-based learning coordinator help them take for the exam. The work-based learning coordinator is extremely vital to this process. They work with students for activities, and they engage employers and school providing structured learning experiences for the students. These experiences are focused on assisting students in developing skills on post-secondary education and their workplace. Here are a list of different work-based learning opportunities we've sponsored at our central office. And what's great is that because we do this here at Central Office, students are not left out. So for example, Edison, students automatically participate in work-based learning. They go to job sites, they work with their partners, and ESA, the same thing, but other schools don't have those opportunities. And because we do it centrally, we had Job Shadow Week last week where students went out to jobs. That 50 different jobs participated, 176 students participated in the event. They went to multiple jobs, they saw different unions. And a great comment I heard from that event was a student would say, now I know what I want to do after high school. And this is what it's for. It's for kids to see what potential opportunities are available to them after high school. We have career in construction, rock with your hand, there's the manufacturing, work-based learning opportunities, career in healthcare, career in education. There's so many different opportunities we are supporting district-wide for students in all schools, from grades middle school up. I'll just stop there. The last goal is family improvement, communication. So part of the Perkins application is called a comprehensive local needs assessment, where you communicate with the postgraduates and the students, stakeholders, families, and see what you can do to make the program better. That communication gives us details and information to expanding and making the CT program at the school better and increase participation. And we want as many students as possible engaging in CTE. And we know that pathway happens through parents, connecting with the community. I hope that because parents see what opportunities they have available to the students here at the city school district, they choose the city school district as opposed to a charter school. Because no one else was going to offer welding or manufacturing or becoming a teacher or learn to fly a drone. And those are the 5 goals. At this time, if you have any questions, you're allowed to ask 5 questions each.
Well, I'll determine that, because we are not. We are not.
Okay.
But thank you for your presentation, Mr. Cox. I do want to, I'm going to start off this particular time. Slide 17, where are we here? I do have questions around the robotics, but one of the questions I have is more so probably for budget season, so I'll wait for that. But I see here, I think you dedicated slide 17 to these are opportunities afforded to students in the middle school space, right?
No, not only middle school. We have girls who game at the high school east.
Okay.
East Edison
I
and
knew
Wilson have
that.
girls who game.
Okay.
Drone is a school program at School of the Arts right now. Esports at the middle and high school. Robotics, Lego leads mostly at the elementary grade levels. And the robotics team are only at the high school.
And the reason I was asking about that or honing in on that, because I wanted to make sure my understanding was correct as far as what our children have access to in middle school and how that's pipelining them or attracting them to what's being offered in the high school, if there's consistency around that. Because I would, if I'm a student in 6th grade, for example, and I'm flying a drone, that's really different than looking at an auto mechanic opportunity and, just streamlining the opportunities there. Does that make sense?
You think more enrichment opportunities, which, yeah, I agree. It takes time to grow these projects. The thing we need are teachers who are staff members who are willing to facilitate these at the building. There's a number of transportation issues that tends to slow the amount of programs we can have at schools. But yeah, I agree with you in terms of opening up more opportunities, and I can't wait to go into more things.
So maybe I can commit this to the board log as far as a question, Ms. Andino, just wanting to know identifying a plan for students for things that are not streamlined, like how they'll be exposed, so that when they go into, I think Edison or someone, I've heard of people saying, hey, going into the middle schools and talking about the different programs that they offer, so that just so children are prepared and they can select and come in interested and ready. So that's one piece I'd love to know more about regarding the CTE portfolio. And then my last question is, what are the funding sources for? Are they all one? Like, are they under ARPA? Like, what are the funding sources for the CTE?
For the beginning, a lot of those were started out with ARP, but most of them are just maintaining the program, so it's a fund. A few are grants, like, for example, the Bosch grant is a drone program. We've got a new grant again, so we're going to have more teachers become certified to be drone instructors. So most of it is either grants or currently a fund.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on the Zoom at this time? And we're going to go right into Commissioner Griffin.
Hello, Mr. Cox, how are you doing?
Great.
Good. I'm kind of interested in what career pathways in public safety do you offer CTE programs at Franklin, on the Franklin campus. I see overall, though, that we have a lot. Let me back up for a minute. Just to say that I'm just amazed at how many CTE programs have went away since I went to school and graduated in 1988. It bothers my soul and my spirit to see that everything that I had during the school when I went to school has been ripped away from these children in the city of Rochester. I have to say that because my heart aches for them to not have the programs that most of the programs still are at Edison and not at the other schools. And they were ripped away from them, not giving the avenues and the pathways to success as I had. I have to say that first. Secondly, my question as it stands is, where are you doing? We know Franklin has a lot of issues and concerns. I am interested, because that is Franklin is still one of the oldest schools standing. What initiatives have you implemented over at Franklin campus so that we can get that school back on the right track in reference to the pathways of safety or in CTE programs? Thank you.
So the CTE programs that's chosen is based on the space. For example, we couldn't just put an automotive program at a school. The amount of equipment you need to install there it'll be too costly to put something like that. And a lot of the programs, I know that Franklin's on the FMP process eventually, so I'm a part of that committee that's in the process of planning and deciding what happens to the building during FMP. But Career Path to Public Safety is definitely going to happen at Franklin, and we hope to grow out to other programs at that building as well.
I'm interested in timeframes because we talk a lot talk. We talk a big talk in this boardroom, and I hear again, I'm an action person, so we need timeframes. So I would be interested in knowing what the timeframe would be for Franklin getting back on their feet and getting those CTE programs and public safety programs implemented at that school, and what do we expect the timeframe to be there? You know, I think that's the valid question because we have issues and concerns, and I know we want to show student outcomes. We want our students to stay at Franklin. We don't want Franklin to be labeled as one of the worst schools in the district. So in order able to do that, in order for us to change that narrative, we have to make things happen, right? So that's just something that I think that we should do.
Maybe we could. I absolutely will answer that question. I will actually answer in an email later on with Steve.
Thank you.
I'll send it back to Steve. But maybe we should talk because I think it's difficult to present all the possibilities that can happen in Franklin. And then maybe we should kind of discuss what kind of things you
Why don't we do this? Why don't we commit that to the board question log so the question is captured for follow-up, and now we know it's there, and we'll be able to discuss it. Thank you so much, Commissioner Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Cox.
Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you. I just have 2 questions to put on the question log, because I don't think we can get that information tonight, but I am interested to know how many of our students are currently, or what percentage of our students at the high school level are currently enrolled in or participating in this type of programming, in CTE programming.
I had that number off the top of my head. I don't remember it now.
It's okay,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
So just at some point, I'd be really interested to see that. And then the second question is, do we have the capacity to allow any student who wants to enroll in their, the choice or their preferred CTE program, do we have the capacity to make that happen?
So that's a great question. We have that capacity with a CPPS program. It is at Franklin, but students from any school can go. Students take the bus in the morning, go to Franklin, take classes. We go all the classes in the morning, and then go back to their home school. We used to have other shared program like that. For example, we had carpentry and automotive did the same thing in Edison, and eventually maybe we'll go back to that. But I think I want to provide opportunities to our students. I think that students should choose the school that offers the program that they want, but I understand that some people are like, I'm in the arts, but I really want to do welding. I want to do welding art. Then we have to figure something out for that, and I haven't gotten to that point yet, but that is something we're working on.
Thank you so much. And then I just think the last thing I wanted to say is more a comment than anything else. It's so refreshing to see a renewed focus, not just in this district, but really nationwide. We saw a shift in education in the 1990s away from CTE-type programming or career-ready programming, not just here in our CSD, but really nationwide.
Right.
And then with No Child Left Behind in the early 2000s, there was a further shift in this idea that everyone's going to college. I think that there is a great deal of value to invest in this type of programming. And I think students everywhere, not just in our CSD, benefit from having these available programs. And I know in the suburbs, they get a lot of these programs through BOCES.
BOCES, right.
But we have to provide that here for ourselves. And I just applaud your department for making these available to our students. Thank
I'm
you.
just going to say before I go, I cannot do this work with all my staff. I have a really good staff behind me, supporting me and helping me to work. Today, we had an event called Rock Your Job, and we had 114 students fill out applications for summer youth employment. Could have done it without my staff and Monroe County and the departments as well. So
Thank you.
Commissioner Patterson.
Thank you. Thanks again for what you're doing and putting the program together. Just a couple questions. You spoke relative to, certification and some certification is not needed to teach CET. Could you speak to that?
I think that New York, some programs are certified and some programs are not certified by New York State. A certified program has certain requirements needs to meet, and some programs do not meet those requirements yet, but we're working towards it.
Okay, do you have any of the statistics? And if you don't, we'll put it in the question log. Any data relative to the teachers who are currently not certified or the ones that are working towards certification? That's very important that we know that as a board.
Okay.
All right, so
So
thank you for
a
that.
report of certified versus non-certified teachers in CTE.
And the ones who are working toward it?
Yep.
Yep, thank you. Career Pathways to Public Safety, as one of my colleagues indicated, I taught in that program, as you know, so that's very near and dear to my heart. More importantly, that any time that we waste or we don't utilize for our students, there's a possibility that they walk out the door and don't come back, But we know those are six-figure digit, salaries with benefits, police, fire, EMS, and 911, or close to it. But these are jobs that are very important to our kids, so to wait on a building, and I say that respectfully, we're waiting on Franklin to implement that, that should have been implemented by now, and I'd hope that by the end of the year that, we have that plan down that, okay, if we're gonna start this up in September, that, okay, we're gonna start it up in September of next year, school year, and be able to hit the road, running. So do you want to speak to that right now, or do you want me to continue with the next two questions?
So the CPPS program is we're going through that process now. We have students working in the program now, and all it is we're saying is that that's the location for it, the Franklin campus.
All right, I'll leave that alone for now, and we'll talk offline.
Okay.
Are we doing anything with East as far as a cost-saving measure with any programs that they have over there? Are we collaborating with East on their programs?
I collaborate with East. We call all the schools on all the RCSD schools are CTE program schools. So yeah, we collaborate with East all the time.
Great, great. And the last part is just a statement. I know that we're building a collaboration with REOC, SUNY Brockport, and they have a welding van, or a mobile welding unit. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Dr. Marius, if you don't, please reach out to him over at REOC, SUNY Brockport. But he does, Commissioner Simmons, he wants to come in and give a presentation on what REOC, can do and collaborate, with Sheldon, with us here for the board.
Okay.
What he's offering as far as, that mobile welding van.
Okay.
And that's it for me.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank you so very much. It looks like that concludes our questions for this evening. We thank
right.
you again for your presentation. Folks, please be sure to take the board, not the question log, Lord Jesus, the survey, please, and we're going to start preparing to transition into our next presentation in just a moment. Actually, I should actually close out this meeting so we can enter the new meeting. So at this time, this concludes the Equity and Student Achievement Committee of the Whole. May I entertain a motion to close the meeting?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Patterson, seconded by Commissioner Griffin. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm so tired. This meeting is concluded at this time. Thank you. And thank you to our viewing audience for your patience. Welcome back. We concluded our initial meeting for this evening. We are now entering the special meeting to convene for the RCSD strategic plan. Again, today is February 27th, and I want to welcome Ms. Aurora Laura, who will be presenting on the strategic plan this evening.
Thank you, board members, for having me here today. I'm excited to be back to share where we are with the content in terms of our core values, vision, mission, and to share the draft priorities and goals for the final strategic plan. And we are at our last phase of the process, here to get any final feedback that you have before we bring you a final version in a graphically designed lovely version in March. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. At our last meeting, we got feedback from you about core values, vision, and mission, and we went back and worked with the steering committee. We shared what you had said. We got them to help us use your feedback to make our version stronger. And so steering committee and cabinet both worked together on making the versions you're going to see today. So to start with, for core values, we landed on student-centered relationships, excellence, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and safety. And what you can see on the screen are the definitions that we've written to go with each of them. For student-centered, we approach our work with an open, curious mindset, committed to learning and relentlessly focused on our students' needs and interests. We believe that student voice is essential to understanding and solving the core issues of education, and that including student voice is a priority. For relationships, we intentionally develop relationships to create a culture of safety, trust, and openness so that every student, family, staff member, and community partner feels valued and connected. For excellence, we wrote, we work with integrity and hold ourselves accountable for exemplary outcomes, service, and interactions. For diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, we wrote, we foster equitable and inclusive schools where adults take responsibility for student learning outcomes, value and empathize with diverse lived experiences of others, dismantle systems of oppression, align resources for equitable opportunities, and eradicate achievement gaps. And for safety, we wrote, we create safe and supportive environments that foster human connection, help us reach our shared goals, and drive student success. So those are the core values we've come up with, and I'll go through all the content and then we'll open it up for your comments or questions. Next, with our vision, just a reminder, vision describes what the district hopes to achieve or be in the future. And we landed, after your feedback and then the feedback from the steering committee, with activating dreams and unlocking potential. And for mission, mission articulates what is unique about who the district is, what the district does, and who it serves. And we landed on, we cultivate a culture of academic excellence for all and a community of empathy, equity, and accountability that empowers students to succeed beyond graduation. We are one RCSD. So those are the foundational pieces. And then for priorities and goals, last time we shared with you the priority areas, which are instructional excellence, preparing students for life, inclusive, healthy, and joyful environments, recruit, grow, and retain staff, strengthen school, family, and community engagement, and operational and fiscal excellence. Your board goals are the goals that are making up the instructional excellence column. So I'm just going to share with you the goals that the other departments came up with to help support the work of the academics. So under inclusive, healthy, and joyful environments, the district wants to increase the percentage of schools implementing restorative practices with fidelity from 65% to 100%. Reduce the percentage of overall out-of-school suspensions from 10.9% to 8.5%, and these are all by June 2028. Reduce the current rate of chronic absenteeism from 71.8% to 57.44%, and increase the percentage of students who identify their school community as a place where they feel safe and belong on the annual student survey from 16% to 75%. Under recruit, grow, and retain staff, they want to increase the percentage of teachers who identify as BIPOC from 24 to 30%. Increase employee engagement and professional development activities over the next 3 years, as evidenced by a 10% increase in participation rates and an average participant feedback rating of 3 out of 4 on their surveys. Implement inclusive practices and culturally responsive teaching methods to increase student engagement and satisfaction levels across all demographics by 8% over the next 3 years, and increase employee retention rates by 5% over the course of 3 years. Under strengthen school, family, and community engagement, they want to increase the percentages of schools implementing the community schools model with fidelity from 43% to 100%. Strengthen the connection between school, family, and community by ensuring 100% of schools have representation of parents on school-based planning teams. Provide enhanced communication channels to families to boost engagement across the district's community, as evidenced by a 30% increase in parents who've signed up with the parent portal, and increase the percentage of parents who agree or strongly agree that they feel a sense of belonging in their child's school community from 59% to 75%. And for our last column, operational and fiscal excellence, the district plans to submit a balanced budget to the state monitor by March 1st of every year. Actual general fund revenue exceeds budget by no more than 1%, and actual general fund expense is under budget by no more than 2%. Develop a comprehensive long-range plan to optimize the efficient utilization of facilities and transportation services for students, aiming to reduce costs, minimize environmental impact, and enhance convenience and safety, resulting in a 15% increase in overall transportation efficiency and a 10% improvement in facility utilization rates within the next 3 to 5 years, and invest in and improve facilities and resources to enhance student learning and ensure a safe school environment. So the next steps that we will take after today's meeting is we will work with the district leadership team and cabinet to make any final revisions that we need to based on the feedback that we get from you tonight. We have been working on and will finalize the key performance indicators and the strategies that will go along with each of these plans, each of the goals. We're also in the process of working with a graphic designer right now to bring current pictures of students and teachers and families into the plan, and to, just make a nice cover and make sure all the pieces that we have worked on together have, been implemented into the nice glossy form. And then, in the last stage, as we move forward, we'll complete this plan, but the district will need to then develop their implementation plan for how they're going to implement each of these strategies over the next 5 years and how they're going to report out to you and the community on a regular basis. And then the last thing is we will be bringing the plan back to you in March via resolution at the March business meeting. So that concludes the presentation, and I will turn it over to you for questions or comments.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Laura, for the presentation this evening. I do want to just make one quick comment regarding slide, I think it's 13, where all the KPIs, and I know I'm looking forward to see how the KPIs or key performance indicators are going to be further developed along with strategies. And I notice many of them, they say June of 2028, which we all determined. And then some are generally written as well, just wanting to tighten up the timeline, even those that have identified June of 2028 as a timeline, like just more specificity around the date that we're looking to reach the goal. Is something I'd like to see. I do see Commissioner Malloy's hand.
Thank you. Yeah, just similarly to what Commissioner Simmons has said around the timelines, especially for the board goals and that piece, which is really driving everything else, if we could have that starting date as well. So for instance, beginning in September 2024, so that the public knows when we actually started these, so that even 2 years from now, they can go back and say, oh, we're already 2 years into this. So it's just a minor detail, but I think that would be probably a good thing to have moving forward. The other thing is just more stylistic, and I think you're working with graphic designers, and I also have to just compliment, I love the mission statement, I love the vision, like kudos. I'm in love with it all, so kudos on that. But yeah, just in terms of the style, if there's a way that we can show graphically how those 4 goals that the board came up with drive everything else, so that for the public at least, that's front and center, and how we're gonna get to those goals is maybe underneath somehow. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but.
It is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so
we will
that's the
share
only
that.
thing. But I really like what I'm seeing here, tighten up the timelines, and then just what is the start date? But thank you so much for presenting. Love it.
Thank
Can I
you,
just
Commissioner
add-
Malloy.
Is it okay if I just add to that? So in the other documents, you will see the yearly timelines. So what was included in here is in the 4 years, in 2028, what is going to be the ultimate goal, but each of them will also break each year what our goal is in order to reach that final percentage of 2028.
Thank you, Deputy Turner. Commissioner Griffin?
Just basically the same thing. The timeline is what is really bothering me as well, as far as so far out. But Deputy Turner just clarified some of that information, because we do know that things that we are implementing now will affect the absenteeism that we have if it is implemented in a timely fashion. Everything drives something else. So these percentages that you're saying could be really off if you're saying like 2028, because we are trying to do things in an expedient manner, but within time, so that the kids so we can reduce the absenteeism. So to everybody's point, I think that once we see the other graphs, everything will make more sense. But right now, that to me is crucial. That timeline is 2028 is too far out. So if we could see something that brings that in and be more realistic, I think that would be advantageous to all of us.
Sure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Patterson?
Commissioner Simmons is going to love me. I have no questions. I mean, they pretty
A little
much,
better now. Okay. Yes, yes, okay.
they
that'll
really,
work.
you guys had the questions that I had anyhow, so.
Answer questions at this time. Perfect. And then Vice President LeBron, did you have any feedback or any extension? I know she was doing multitasking a bit, but let us know if you have any thoughts or questions or concerns. Do anyone want to expound on the mission, vision? Are we all on the same page on that?
I don't, Commissioner Simmons. I just
Okay.
want to thank you. I don't, though, at this time, but thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, and we all feel comfortable with what we see at this particular time.
Other than the graphics.
Yeah, other than the graphics. And so I did see on there, you said by the March business meeting, so if any thoughts come after, we can just reach out to you directly, or?
Yes, me or the superintendent.
Superintendent.
And LaShara.
Yes. Reach out to Chief Evans?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
We did build out those charts, but we wanted to make sure everyone was good with the long-term goals before we hand over the shorter ones. So we've drafted those, and we'll look forward to sharing those with you in the next version.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much for your patience and your presentation again this evening. And that concludes this meeting for February 27th. May I entertain a motion to conclude this meeting, the special meeting for the evening? Motion by Commissioner Patterson, second by Commissioner Malloy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.